Hey guys, welcome back to the Luminous Arts. I spend the next hour and a half talking to a good friend of mine, David Glicksman. He's the director of creative technology at Gensler's DxD department in LA. They're doing some really next level installations in some of the world's most impressive architectural projects. David's an incredibly creative guy, and he's been part of the scene from the beginning. He started with VFX and motion graphics, and he moved into the digital placemaking industry a few years ago when he took the helm at DxD. Our conversation is great, and we get into the weeds on what it means to truly be creative and an artist in this industry. I love this conversation, and I bet you will too. It's a really the media walls time has arrived, and they're going everywhere.
Yeah, it's really weird for me coming from motion graphics and VFX, entering the architecture world, and then watching my world come slam up against that world.
So
Like
there was
teaching
this.
architects what media is like really, it's really something.
Yeah, I mean we called it convergence in the show production industry, and it's happening in the architectural industry now with show production technologies and like technologies of the stage, and
Hmm.
also cinematic technologies.
I've worked in so many fucking microcosms of the same world that don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
So like this weird ass freelancing career, I've been in every corner of this like broadly defined media, entertainment, and now architecture, built environment like world. And we all use the same tools and we all do the same stuff and just none of them talk to each other. I'm so glad to see it finally, you know, coming together.
Yeah, yeah. Man, I would be so curious to talk to the engineers on that project that you're working on, just because, like, for example, what are they using to get signal up to those upper screens? Is it like a slip disc,
It is
like a slip
exactly
disc
a
room?
flip disk, but a very exotic one that had to come from a very small company very far away over a very long amount of time. It's just a super high. Well, okay, I can super nerd out about this with you. Um, the really big challenge is driving direct view LED using technology that needs a straight home run, even though it's over an Ethernet cable. You can't go through switches. You can't go through anything. Um, so we actually have the like Novastar, LED drivers inside the sign locally spinning around with it, and then we're
Oh,
piping video
interesting.
over. Yeah, then we're piping SDI, which is more robust and can go through slippery. I can nerd out deep about this if you want, but
Well, no, no, no.
I
Let's
could do
describe
that
it
all
real
day.
quick. Let's just describe it. I'll let you describe it in a way that you're comfortable describing it, just so people can visualize what we're talking about.
Sure.
And
Well,
then I want to
I
introduce
should.
you.
Yeah, I was going to say, have we started? Are we talking?
This is how we start these things, man. We literally
I
just
love
start
it.
talking, and I hit record, and then at some point we do an introduction, and
Oh shit, we've been talking for a while. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
no, I mean it's how it works.
yeah. Well, okay. So we are building for a. They're not like the world's sexiest client, but they are large and they're super smart and they are tech and forward thinking. They're based out of Arizona, and because this is all super NDA, there's probably all the more I can say. But a really lovely bunch of people who don't otherwise know much about media have decided to embark on a crazy journey with us. And in their new headquarters, we are doing, is it three or four? I think we just landed on three. I can't believe I've been on this project a year. I'm also completely fried at this point. We are doing a number of installations for their new headquarters. Uh, the first of which is this giant sign that welcomes you. They've got this two and a half story atrium. It's all glass and sunlight and air. And inside the atrium is this 30-foot high sign with two stationary and four rotating panels of LED, super high res on the front and low res sort of interpreted imagery on the back behind diffusion. Originally, it was going to be behind mirrored glass and it was going to look super sexy, but the sunlight was going to make headaches for people. Um, and it's connected to a cloud-based CMS, pulling in a bunch of stories from their marketing departments and different communications platforms, and just making like straightforward ass digital signage, but beautiful. We put a
Right.
huge amount of work into all the touch designer like motion graphics to make all these stories transition in all sexy, and there's this generative background that's flowing through. um, the panels rotate in a way that's just breathtaking. It was really important to me that we didn't treat anything like an engineering project. It all, because my background is an animation project, so I actually had this really brilliant animator on our team do all of the kinetic sculpture, animation. And it's just like it's like a one dimensional bot and dolly setup. So all of that was animated in Maya with
Right.
just like a really sumptuous sense of motion and timing and ease. And it all spins around. All of the media on there reacts, and so there's fake parallax. It's counter rotating, the graphics against the rotation in real time. It's
Oh,
just a
that's so
lovely,
cool.
sexy thing. Then inside a little bit of ways, we're taking that same graphics language and putting on a series of, we're calling them prisms. So there's these LG stretch displays. You've probably seen them. They're like 80 inches
Yep.
wide. They're they're
Yep.
they're they're 4K, but only half of the width. So we have those mounted in portrait displays, and there's 16 of them, and they're all working in concert to do similar messaging through the place. And then upstairs, the third interaction is a big old touch table, which is pretty tired just throwing a touch table at something. But then the touch table itself is, I mean, it would be tired to just throw a touch table at them, but it's tied into more of these displays, these giant 80-inch Samsung Plasma 4K Mamma Jammas that are, there's three of them mounted again in portrait orientation that's sort of cordoning off a little semi-private area. It's got a dropped ceiling that was going to be tied in with all the lighting and controls, but that got value engineered away. And then there's this big touch table, and so sales bros can like lay out their story and invite everyone to come in and say, "Ooh, I'm interested in that," and "Oh, you do agriculture," and "Oh, you do this kind of cloud stuff," and they can put together a story, and then it casts up onto those big displays, and they do all their marketing stuff. I'm talking in an excited way about probably our most boring project, but
Really, it
like
sounds like a
it's
beautiful
really
piece.
no, it's gonna
It
be
really does.
gorgeous. It really is gonna be gorgeous. It's just it's interesting the range of stuff we get up to and my ability to get excited about the work we're doing. Because well, I can get all philosophical about it downstream.
Well,
I'm sure
dude,
we'll get there.
content is really what makes it count. And it's one part architecture, the way you're integrating the screens into the architecture, but then it's also about the content and how that content
Mm-hmm.
is laid out on those screens because they work in context. They
Yeah,
work
and I
together
haven't.
to create an
Oh, I think I got just enough delay. I'm going to spend this whole call like talking over you.
No, it's
But
okay.
I haven't found the right word yet. But my mission, once I've found it, is to make the word content forbidden, at least at our architecture practice, because it's it turns into a box to check.
Right.
Like I know that you're talking about that coming from the right place, and you understand the holistic beauty of imagery and physicality and motion and substance and weight and light and sound all being part of the same ecosystem of experience. But it's
Yep.
real easy to say, yeah, we built you this building, we saved you a lobby, we're going to throw some screens on there, and you guys are in charge of content.
Oh my God, dude. Yeah, no, that's the nightmare, and it's the ongoing struggle to educate clients that content is more than just a postage stamp video screen on a wall with an advertisement running on it. So often these things are just thrown up there as an afterthought. They're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, we'll put some screens up," and it's
We
not
spent $2 million
integrated.
on the screen. We've got $35,000 for content.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
go fuck
Exactly.
yourself.
So listen,
Oh,
I want to introduce you real quick. We met at the Coda Summit, but you're in LA and you're working as the what's your title at Gensler? It's in the DxD
it's actually
department. You're
changed
the
since.
head.
Yeah, it's changed since we met anyway. So I am the director of creative technology for the digital experience design practice area at Gensler in Los Angeles. It's hard for me to. We just had a giant reorg, and like there's 150 of us now across the country, and now we've all come under one organizational like structure. It's I don't know. It's all changing. Doesn't matter. I am working at the world's. I'm coming from a background of being a motion graphics and visual effects artist and a weirdo maker and creative technologist, and now I'm working at the world's largest architecture firm. I have no idea how the hell that happened, but
So
it's
wait, does
awesome.
that mean that the DxD department has now become one thing across all cities?
It does. We don't even
That's
know what that means yet collectively, but that's what is happening.
interesting, man. That's
Yeah.
I was talking to the guys at the Rockwell Group, and they have an experienced design department as well.
Oh yeah, they're
And
badass.
they are, man. Everybody's incredibly doing really inspirational things, and I'm just really excited to see how Gensler integrates and pulls that in and like really makes it part of the design practice. Because we were talking about that when we met, and how essentially Gensler is this behemoth, and they've tacked on this DxD thing because they know it's becoming a more and more important part of the architectural experience. And
Mhm.
yeah, just how that's integrated, how that becomes you know part of the internal vernacular and part of the conversation with the old school, the lifers at Gensler. it,
Yeah.
it it's fascinating to see.
God, it's interesting to hear you say lifer too, because that's also an interesting part of the dynamic. Like we're the weird young upstarts. We're coming here to like mess up everybody's day, but like it's really like shockingly well coming together. So like 4 years ago, Gensler DxD didn't exist. Maybe I'm getting maybe it's five at this point because time is a fluid and strange thing, especially in the last couple of years for all of us. But like um, they like just like you said, they recognized that the digital was coming for them, and they better figure it out. And they hired a couple visionary, business development type folks. There's Hans Neubert and David Kramer are running DxD at the highest level of the, wearing blazers and talking to people level of work. And they're just super brilliant biz dev people who know how to start up a studio, and they have the vision and they have the growth curves and all that stuff. Um, and for the first year, it was them and a few people in each city, basically sitting at a desk with a phone, trying to cause something to exist. And then
Yeah.
within a year, there were and in New York there was more of a pilot program, and they were really actually off the ground running, like doing some work right away. And then, within a year after that, we had some small teams going. I came on right around then. I'm coming up. June will be my third year, which is the longest I've ever worked anywhere. I mean, I freelanced for the better part of 20 years, so I'm already freaked out just being in a building with like a roof on
So you
it.
said it's your third year with Gensler?
It's my third year with Gensler, yeah.
Wow,
And
man,
in
that's
that
amazing.
time, it's gone from like, hey, the building across the street, like we have a relationship with those guys. They put up an LED sign. Can you like make some cooler stuff for it? And like now we're doing, let's see, which ones am I allowed to say? We're doing massive amounts of work for Netflix and Warner Media and this company in Arizona. We're doing things in the Middle East. We are doing the Grammy Museum here in LA. We're doing massive projects and tiny projects and intimate things and far out there things. We're building like the thing I just showed you, a 30-foot tall kinetic LED sculpture. We've
Yeah.
grown into connected experiences. So we've hired some really brilliant people who just know how to get the building to talk to your phone, to talk to your, car, to integrate all of the hospitality and the like Disney magic band kind of thinking into, your trip to any office building. Hey, your lunch is ready. It's on the third floor. Here's the quickest route there, and I've already called you an elevator. Like we've got people doing that kind of work. It's
So
nuts.
does that fall into DxD? Because to me, that's like that's digital twin stuff. Do you know what I mean?
It
That's like that's
yeah.
connected. That's like that's
There
building
hasn't
management.
been a better home for it than DxD, so we're sort of the umbrella for all of the interesting stuff, which is cool.
Yeah,
But I mean, you're right. That is distinct from what I do, but we're all, how do I put it? Uh,
it's
Gensler, as
related.
any large, yeah, it's related. Any large firm like this is going to be broken up both regionally and by practice areas. So there's the people who do hospitality, and there's airports, and there's mixed use, and work one and work three, and all these different groups that are each brilliant in their own, isolation. And we are the cool kids that just talk to everybody.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. You know, it's funny because I make it a point to know everybody who's doing cool things. And what that does is it allows us to do cool things. You know, we've been pushing real hard into interactivity and
Mm-hmm.
essentially building in interactivity to like media wall displays, creating reactive content, using LiDAR in order to do hand tracking on big displays, do uh, pedestrian tracking down hallway
Mm-hmm.
corridors. And it's like without the right people on your team, none of that happens. So whatever
not
you're
only
doing,
do you not not only do you have to have the right people to know how to do it, but also to know what to do, which is really why it's really fun looking at your projects. Like just that, like if I have to walk up to another fucking wall and flap my arms to see a swirl of particles, I'm gonna barf. But like the but the really subtle and wonderful things you can. I love that you called it reactive and not interactive. Like the ways you can get stuff to just respond to people and be alive. It's so cool right
yeah. Well, there's a real renaissance happening in the world of sensors, you know,
now.
and gestural control. And I was talking to Alex from Float 4 the other day, and he was he's doing some really interesting things with his media server, which essentially is very much focused on interactivity and taking in and parsing sensor data. Is really
Oh yeah,
cool.
those sons of bitches wrote their own touch designer. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We actually use it on a project. It's really deep. It's swirly, and it's like all of their documentation is watch this directory full of videos where two guys talk to each other, and there's a weird like third guy just trying to like break it up and keep it lively, and like I couldn't do it, but I didn't need to. We paid them for their time, and they developed alongside us, and they were just so freaking brilliant and like
What
fun to
did
work.
you work with
Anyway,
them on? I'm just curious. What project did you work?
um, can we disclose that one? Yes, maybe. I'll be slightly circumspect. But the
Yeah, general.
giant again, it's weird. We're actually moving away from just straight up signage things. But this was a giant 30 foot. Oh, I showed you pictures of it. For a major entertainment brand you've heard of, their new lobby in Culver City. It's four giant, like 30-foot high LED plinths, the ones that are each rotated 10 degrees. And
Yeah.
there's super high res LED on all four sides of each of four of these for like something like a 16K canvas. And so we needed four of their real motion servers. I keep calling them real media, which is insulting. Real motion servers, and like a bunch of sync between those servers and between their software and our software and between like a third party cloud software. It was a real like hairy beast, and they just stepped up.
So let me ask you a question. What was it about their server software that made you choose them over like, I don't know, Disguise or whatever, like
Right.
why use real sense?
Oh, it was actually a terrible decision process. It was a good decision, but like it was, we just got backed into it between. We were still learning. I mean, we were young relative to our practice. Like we hadn't done anything pushing that many pixels before, and we had a good and still have a really good relationship with Electrosonic, the integrator. And they came to us and they said, okay, well, you're pushing a huge amount of pixels. There's only three ways to do it. You can use a like an Alcorn McBride, like Soviet surplus like machine, where you just feed it compact flashcards, and like they come from the rack world.
Right.
There's these things that we use to do rides at Disneyland, where
Right.
you feed it this one piece of media and it will play it back 100 million times before you need to reboot it. but it also doesn't do anything else. Or you could use the 7th Sense, and they showed us like a whole. They gave us actually set up a meeting, and like they gave us their whole spiel about like weird kind of paradigms for interaction. That I'm sure again would be wonderful if you were in the ride industry. Um, and then there's Real Media, Real Motion. Shit, sorry, there's Flip Forward with their Real Motion system, and we really just bought it for their server hardware because it can be like, you know, serviced. So much of my job now, like I said, I spent 20 years like doing and making and building and like writing my own code and soldering and being up on a ladder like at 3 o'clock in the morning, and now I'm specifying and diagramming and writing, interaction narratives, and it's a whole different world. And so much of an architecture firm is about design. We don't build. We're not a design build shop. We're a
Right.
design shop. So
Yeah.
like I can't just bash together my own like 4K, $4,000 media server out of stuff from Fry's, which doesn't exist anymore anyway. Like
No, I
everything has
get
to
it.
be.
You need to specify a product. That makes total sense. I was just curious because, at this point there are quite a few server options, and I like Alex. Alex is like,
Oh
I
yeah.
believe in him. I believe in his product, and I believe in his company. And it's I'm just curious to see how it fits together and like how people in
Well,
the
I mean, the other part of it is what kismet or fate. Like it was absolutely a stupid decision process, but I'm really glad that we did it and we found the right people, and like they just, you know, I mean, you're from the fringes of like understanding reality anyway, right? Like we work in this sort of emotional idea space, and the right shit just comes to you eventually. If you put out the right kind of work and you put out the right kind of relationship with the people you work with, like you end up with the right tools and the right people. I mean, sometimes you don't, but no, it just keeps working out.
No, that's cool, man. It's cool to see how things have grown. It's funny because I am, our company is very much on the build, do, create. Kind of
Hmm.
where you were when you were freelancing. But
Yeah,
we've
but
been
I'm
doing.
jealous of where you guys are at. Like every from outside, everything you do looks super fun.
It is super fun, and we're doing some really cool projects. We're doing some really big projects. For us, they're really big, and they're pushing us. They're pushing the team to develop new skills, and we're bringing in new team. And we actually just started working with Patrick Connolly, who is one of the founders of Obscura.
Yeah.
He's a heavy hitter, man. He's a cool guy, and he knows everybody, and it's just
Hmm.
it's helping to open doors. But it's a really unique it's a unique time, and things are
Yeah.
changing really quickly, and there are a lot of.
It kind of feels like the good parts of the 90s again, right? Just in terms of like the energy in the room for trying new things and being
Yep.
excited by them.
Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed that there's a lot of companies that are essentially digital signage companies that are moving into this space. And you know digital ambience is funny because we've got these two different branches. One branch is the design build branch, and the
Hmm.
other branch is like custom hardware branch. And we've been doing more and more business developing like custom display hardware, like like crazy curved screens and unique dynamic LED PCBs and
Well, that's what you
sensor
were gonna
array.
do. That's what you were gonna do for us before that job fell apart.
I know,
That
man, but
crazy ass projection rig with auto, like self calibrating, corner pinning, projection mapping. Like,
yep, yep.
yeah.
Well, here's the thing though. It's like we could go and work directly for Gensler, or we could
Hmm.
go and we could work for VT Pro as a provider of integrated
Hmm.
systems. You know what I mean? And we've been working for more and more companies like DCL Boston,
Hmm.
Design and Innovations out of Kansas City,
Yep. Yep.
Electrosonic here in the Bay. It's like it's weird, and I'm not exactly sure how it's going to all shake out. But it's like I'm just pushing on these two different fronts, and and things are moving.
Oh,
So
that's really, really good to hear. I mean, everybody's super busy right now, so it's easy to feel like you're just swept up in the wave that everybody's riding. But like, you guys, not only do you guys do good work, but like just the way that you run that place and relationships, like I feel like it's your time
Yeah, it feels like it. It really does. It definitely does. So what's next? What's next for what are you
right
excited about in the evolution
now.
of Gensler? Like whatever you can say, you don't have to tell me specifics, but like, you
Fucking,
know,
I don't know.
Gensler Gensler seems like, the DxD department seems like it's really coming together into a cohesive thing. You
Yeah.
know, what
Do you mind if
technologies are
I?
you stoked about?
Yeah. Do you mind if I take the long way around to answer that? Because like
Please
I'm
do,
excited.
man.
I'm excited about some specific stuff, but only because of why and how. So like I've. Well, okay. No, let me give you the short answer first, and then come back around to it. Like the short answer is we are hitting an inflection point where suddenly we have just enough recognition internally, and when you're when internal is 6,000 people like that, that means a lot. They have a lot of resources to throw around and a lot of relationships to make available to us and things like that. Um, but we've been we've been growing. That's the thing. Like we hit like I okay, shit. I'm coming at this from too many places at once. My brain is shaking apart. We You may recall that the world caught on fire a couple years ago. I
I remember
had
that. I remember the
I
fire.
had yeah, I had just essentially left the industry I grew up in and walked away from the better part of 20 years of being in, succeeding in, but like not really loving I've been basically I was trying to get out of motion graphics for the entire time I was in it. 20 years of no, got to back up from that one even more. Um, I came from a fine art and technology background, that whole classic intersection of art and technology, but back before um, people were putting it on T-shirts. Fucking Mason Rothschild at Coda was just showing me a tweet that came across his feed while we were eating lunch. Like, "Hey mom, can you pick me up? I'm at the intersection of art and technology."
Yeah.
Like, but like I legitimately like grew up in that environment. And my dad came from the fine art world. He was a curator. He gave like artists like Robert Irwin and like I mean all these heavy hitters that you're hearing about now, Terrell, that whole world, Dan Flavin, like he knew those guys when they were grad students and like giving them some of their first shows. So that is art and technology. And then I think I gave you this whole like background. My brother was born with a disability, pretty severe, and so before I was born, and so my family's whole life took a hard left. um, my mom started a nonprofit eventually to help people with disabilities get computers. My dad, they actually met after my brother was born. My dad met my mom. She was a single mom with this disabled kid. It was like 1981. And he said, no, sorry, it was 1975 or six. And he's like, we got to get this kid a computer, prove that he like is because the medical world back then, you got a disabled kid, throw him in the river, or put him in an institution,
Whoa.
or it was dark times. Like the Americans with Disability Act, came about at the end of the 70s. Like there was a lot of groundwork before like shit got better. But sorry, this is a very long route around. But like you know, my dad left the art world, got into the digital world. My, mom was all in, and I grew up in this fine art and technology world. By the time I came around, that part of like the light and space movement in the fine art world had essentially petered out, and everything was weird ass, like, well, I mean, sure, the art world was still wonderful, but like it wasn't the stuff my dad cared about, and not the stuff that I care about. It's coming around again. But like by the time I was ready to enter the world and figure out what I wanted, the closest analog to making the world be different, like having this relationship to light and time and space and environment where everything is fluid and you're limited only by the bounds of human perception. Like the only place to do that was VFX. So I came out of high school. I was like, I'm gonna fucking work at ILM. I'm gonna love this. I'm gonna, like, I'm gonna
I think
make
I found your IMDb
fantasy.
page.
Oh no! Oh god!
Yeah, yeah,
There's some
man.
terrible, terrible stuff in there. But
I
like
mean, I'm
VFX was
looking at.
really hard to break into, and I ended up in motion graphics. And like, okay, I am taking a very long route around. The
No,
reason
take it, dude.
I've got
Take
a
it. I like
shortcut.
the long route.
No, no, it's great. It's fun. This is I don't get to talk to people about this stuff. Yeah, but the reason I'm taking the long route around is that I've always been hunting for this way to re-engage with reality. Because like I never bought into reality all that much to begin with. Like, you know, too much acid before college. Like you just like you're not gonna be connected to the world when you see either through art or through whatever else, like everything else that human experience can be. So got real excited about visual effects. Like this was Toy Story era. Like, oh my God. Like nobody drew any of those frames. This is all like my stuff. I grew up with computers slightly before everyone else. So I felt like this is my people. This is my time. Like we're making it's happening. And like Jurassic Park, holy shit, right?
That was a
But
groundbreaking. That was a
it was
groundbreaking moment, man.
groundbreaking, right? Watershed moment in like understanding what kind of stories we can tell each other, what kind of visions we can see into the world. And like it turns out that the VFX industry is like just as a practice. I wandered in for various reasons. I got more dialed into motion graphics than visual effects. I'm not a designer. I'm not an illustrator. I'm a technical guy, but like a very sensitive one. So I was always on the like super technical end. How do we get the Maya kids to talk to the cell animators to be able to get this? Like, I'll write a custom script that'll take these renders and treat it with this thing so that we can, and then we'll treat the cell animation with this other thing, and then they'll all live in the same world and it'll all be beautiful and all that. That was fun for a long time, but it was a grind.
Yeah.
And
VFX is
and most
also very. It can be tedious too.
it's a tedious slog, crunch time all the time. Don't have a family, don't have a life, all of that stuff, trapped indoors at 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, we all love being trapped indoors at 4 o'clock in the morning working on something, but working on
I know
somebody
what you're
else's
saying
thing.
though, man. You're just like you're in front of a computer for. Yeah, I started with VFX as well, and I
Oh my
didn't
god,
get
I
as far
forgot
as
you
you did.
did.
Yeah, but like I know the the paradigm, and
You're right.
it's tedious.
But then I assume you also know how at a certain point you realize, oh shit, everything I've done for the last decade has been inside of a flat 2D rectangle. I
Yeah,
gotta get out of here.
yeah.
And like, thank God, like living in LA, there wasn't. I mean, the hardest thing was doing this in LA because there wasn't a scene like there is now. There weren't places to go get jobs doing what we now call creative technology. I
Yeah.
could have if I lived in London or like maybe in Brooklyn or like Amsterdam, and like now you're making it work up in the Bay. Obscura was either not around yet or like they were too cool for me, you know. But like I spent the last 10 years desperately trying to escape the flat rectangle. I would take a gig, I would work at like a place doing the coolest thing they had ever done, and then they would fold because it's too expensive to do that kind of work. Or or like I would get on the weird ass gigs, like I worked on the Disney on Ice things. They do Marvel Universe Live. It's not even on ice, but they do arena shows, and like their last one was all video projection. And so
Yeah.
like I would get on those jobs and tie the like D3, which is now disguised, into like the stage control system and fly out to Florida with, oh my God, there's a story. The largest building I've ever been in was a former decommissioned Siemens generator factory that's now the home of Feld Entertainment. They do Circus Vargas, or no, Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus, all of the Disney on Ice things, and motocross monster truck stuff, all out of the same building. But we can drink and talk about that one another time. But like always chasing these weird jobs, working on my own side projects, building stuff whenever I can, doing mechatronics and like time, but always with like this sort of motion graphics and animation spirit. And like
Yeah.
finally 3 years ago, I found this job through more, universes strange kind of circumstances.
How did you
And
find it? Because I'm really
oh my
curious.
god,
You know,
oh
I'm
my
curious.
god, I was doing another. I was working at Buck, super lucky to have gotten into Buck, best animation motion graphics company in the world, as far as I know. Like people would kill to get into this company, and I like wandered in through the side door doing my tech stuff. Loved it, but again, like it was just not motion graphics isn't where it's at in my heart. So ultimately, it didn't work out. But I was on Facebook F8 conference. Um, we did this giant graphics package for them that was integrated. We didn't do the stage design, but was integrated into the stage design. They had there's something about 30-foot high LED screens. It seems to be chasing me. They had, if you see 2018 F8 conference, the whole stage was these giant 30-foot high direct view LED backdrops that were on motors so they could slide left and right. And like they actually parted and Zuckerberg walked through, and I missed my chance to hit the button and just squish him like an ant, but like whatever.
Could
We
have saved us all, man.
could have saved us all. And I was doing the graphics package for them, flew up there, worked with this really interesting kid named Sully on all of the like integrating the motion into the physical motion and yada yada yada. It was a great experience, but we were super burnt out. Went out for drinks with the production team from Facebook, and this one woman named Lizzie Shook had, maybe she would have thought too much to drink. I thought just the right amount to drink, but was very talkative. And found out that she was actually just a freelancer for Facebook, and she was like, fuck, I got to get out of this world. This is terrible. Like, what are we doing here? Did you know that things are starting up all over the planet? That the JPL has an experienced design team. They're trying to, get a thing going. And could you imagine this architecture company called Gensler? They're starting a thing up. And okay, that's part A. Then, so I went home. I immediately looked it up. I was like, oh shit, look at this, a job posting, 2 days old. They have a new DxD thing. They're trying to figure out what it is. I wonder if I can apply for it. I said all this to my wife, um, Hillary, who she was like, Gensler. Why do I know that name? Oh shit, right. So hard left over here to a side story. She is the librarian and archivist at the Writers Guild Foundation. Uh, Super awesome, tiny library focused on scripts and screenwriting. And she had her boss like dumped an intern on her a couple years earlier. I didn't want an intern. Shit, we're gonna have some. It's a friend of my boss's. Like, this guy just wants his daughter to have an internship. I don't want, someone who doesn't want to be here. Grumble, grumble, grumble. But then that girl ended up being wonderful. They were fast friends. Um, Hillary said, "Wait a minute, Gensler. That's where Olive's dad works." So
The inn.
the inn. So she asked her boss to ask her friend, hey, can you tell this guy anything about Gensler? I sent him an email. All I was asking is, hey, can you give me a view of the landscape? Like, what is this place? Can you tell me about Gensler? And he said, oh, my God, your application. This is perfect. I'm going to send it to Rob. And I was like, I had an interview the next day and I was hired a week later. Like, it was just
Wow.
just, you know, the universe was in alignment in that moment. And like between
Sometimes things line
me
up like
going
that,
to
man.
Facebook, talking to the aggrieved freelance producer about, yada, 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 it just, I don't know, it was meant to be. Sometimes things just line up like that. You're right.
I feel like you can't force things in life. And when you're ready for a change, when you're ready for something to happen, things line up
Mm-hmm.
like they're supposed to. And oftentimes it's not how you expected, but in the end, it puts you where you are. And a if you're a good person, if you're cool, if you're doing cool shit, then you end up in the right place.
Yeah,
And
damn right. Well, thank you
clearly,
for inferring that I'm a good person.
I just
So,
think,
yeah,
I think
we
most
try.
people, yeah, I think most people, well, I'd like to think most people that I'm like bringing on this podcast are cool people doing cool things, and most of them
Mm-hmm.
are in cool places doing that enable them to
You
do cool things.
you've brought some pretty great folks on the show. I was listening to some back episodes and like it's so easy to forget that we're a small community,
Oh, I know.
and like just everyone that you bring on is so passionate and just cares, we just all want to do the good work that makes the
We
world
just want to make
better.
cool stuff, man. We want to make
We just want
magic.
to make
That's what this
cool
is.
stuff, and we
Yeah.
are. So all of that is the long way around to say that what I'm excited about is at Gensler we have been doing this grand experiment, winning hearts and minds. We have buy-in from the very, very, very top of this giant organization, and we have grassroots happening at the local actually doing shit level, and in between we're 5,000 architects who have no idea what to make of us. And by spending the last few years just absolutely grinding and doing a shit ton of really strong work, we started to win hearts and minds. That's why I brought up the pandemic. 2 years ago, Gensler had a huge round of layoffs. Every job froze. Every client said, "Oh shit, we don't know what to do with buildings right now. They're empty. Let's rethink this in December." And like it was real bad, but we just through vicissitudes of fortune and the nature of the work that we were doing, and we were lucky enough to have clients that were a little bit visionary. Like they all saw it as a moment. Okay, everyone's out of our building. Let's do some crazy shit right now.
Yeah.
And we were the most profitable, fastest growing, most stable like business unit, if you want to think about it in those terms. Gensler's whole like philosophy is about diversifying so that when shit goes weird in Southeast Asia, they don't have to close down the Southeast Asia office because they can, reshuffle. And we were among the groups that were keeping the place afloat for a while. And so now, to a certain extent, assuming we don't screw it up, we, got to be like the golden child for a while. And we're just now starting to get the resources. We've won the hearts and minds. Like I'm building a lab. Like we're moving back to the office and we got invited into the cool part of the building. And
Wow.
like we're starting to get access to clients at the beginning of projects where instead of, hey, we saved you a wall, hey, can you help us win this pitch?
Right.
We're really starting to do it. I'm also really pushing for changing our culture around collaboration outside of Gensler, outside of the building, which is something that architectural practices don't normally do.
Well, it
We
seems
can't
like you guys
grow
do actually
without
have
sharing.
you guys do have robust relationships with other providers. You have to, because in the end, you guys are designing, but you're not producing all of the pieces.
Right.
So you have to have relationships outside of the building.
So those are like vendor relationships, but they're very open and very collaborative and very welcome to co-designing. But it's still our designs, and I'm trying to change even that if I can. Like bring in Max Cooper and just like make. I mean, Max Cooper, if you're listening, like call me. But like bring in like visionary media artists who are working in spaces that I care about and like co-design a space. Like
Yes.
let's inhabit a cooler place than our clients are bringing to us. Let's do some self-initiated projects. Let's show the world who we are. Let's enter some design competitions. So
Man,
that's what I'm excited about. That's what's starting to change.
that's cool. That's music to my ears, man, because I would love to work on a large format light sculpture with you guys. I think that would be amazing. It's like
Well,
right
yeah.
up our
Plus, we
wheelhouse.
met you, and like we can, like, I know what you're capable of, and I know what you're capable, and I know the stories you're capable of telling, not just in the work, but like in the pitch room. Like,
Well,
I
it's an
know how you
emotional
can win
story,
hearts and
man.
minds. Yeah,
It's an
emotional.
emotional story. Yeah, it's a narrative, but it's really all about setting vibe, setting tone, and when you're in a really monumental space and you have this enormous sculptural piece, it it really defines the space. It
And it defines
creates.
your relationship to the space, and it makes
Yeah,
a moment and a feeling.
absolutely, absolutely. So, what
Our
are collaborations
that
that you're
giant. Oh no, you go. I could just keep
what are
riffing on that forever.
no. I mean, I'm just curious. What are some collaborations that you're excited about? Like, who are you working with in the industry that you're stoked for? Like, who are some people right now that you're like, wow, I'm stoked I'm working with these guys or these girls?
Yeah, well, not enough. We're not doing enough collaboration yet. I'm stoked about all the ones that I want to set up. But so right now, all of our collaborations are with vendors and clients. But oh shit, I really want to talk to you about one, and I can't. I could be circumspect. So we. This sounds very. I mean, this is not true to my former self as a, subversive weirdo who hates capitalism, but like I'm starting to love giant media companies because like some of their executives are taking really huge risks with us and doing some next level shit. And so I'm really excited for those kinds of projects. I'm really excited for the people that we're bringing in, just individual artists, not big name artists like I want to bring in, and we'll get there. But like even just our team that we're growing, we're starting to pull in people from the architecture practice. So like we're doing this
Interesting.
job for a major video game company that you've heard of, where among other things, and we're doing some pretty cool lobby installations and this and that. But we're actually doing on a small scale, we're doing our first actual architecture. We're building them an arcade in their office, and it's not an arcade cabinet like Flynn's arcade kind of retro thing. It's more of a 6v6 tournament play, like if you were going to do a Fortnite or a Call of Duty tournament.
Yeah,
So, but it's a room dedicated, and there's this. If you can imagine this long table. It's got six, screens on one side, six on another, but there's nothing touching the table itself. There's little cubbies you can open, and the keyboard, mouse, video game controllers are all tucked away in there. And then up above, there's a cage where they've got PlayStations, Xboxes, PCs, 12 of each of those. And they're all up in this kind of lattice work cave, so you can see all the blinky lights and everything. And then there's the monitors descend down from there on these, hydraulic posts. And so it's just this like sexy gaming environment. And the room itself is really nicely designed and feels cozy but edgy. It's got like acoustic ribbed paneling around it that has this really cool look. All the furniture is custom. Like we're actually designing. It's the first time that we've gone full circle. We're designing the space that our stuff goes in.
dude, I got
So
to show you something, man. Later,
show
later
me.
on after this call, we
Okay.
just developed some like it's this custom acoustic paneling, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
a facade panel and it's
Oh
illuminated from
yeah.
within. So it's just incredibly trippy. I'll show you video of it and you'll
I need to
understand
see it. Yeah.
into a space, man. It's like um it's 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 three-dimensional form turned
Mm-hmm.
into a light sculpture which acts as acoustic paneling.
You're
It's pretty
speaking
cool.
my language. That is so cool. We're also starting to collaborate with. Okay, so let me tell you about a major streaming platform you've heard of that is large enough that they're starting their own animation studio. And we did a piece for them with Oat Foundry. The company that makes the split flaps.
Yeah.
The little they make the tiny ones that are letters that you would use like in a train station, but they also make these larger ones called picture flaps.
Hmm.
And this one is like so fundamental to like my approach to the philosophy of how we work, even though it doesn't look like it's not a screen. It doesn't look like our traditional like DxD like move a bunch of pixels around. Um, but it was such a great collaboration with them that they let us build this thing. So Oat Foundry makes a product. It's a picture flap. It's a 12-inch by 12-inch split flap display where you load it with like a Rolodex of 30 images, and to show the next image, you turn the wheel and like the top card folds down. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you can see me moving my hands. Anyone who's listening can look up what a split
Yeah,
flap
split
display
flap
is.
display. They're
Yeah,
very Googleable.
and so normally they'll do an array of like 3x4 and put it in a like a flower shop or a shoe store or something, and like here's our season's things. It's like a way to show 30 posters, and it
Yeah.
comes with a little web app so that you can say, okay, go to the next slide, and it we totally hijacked their firmware. We asked them to make a custom size that was 9-inch by 9-inch so that we could do an array of 24 wide by 7 high to make a cinemascope aspect ratio of this thing. The animation company gave us these bonkers ass high resolution promotional images from their show, 30 of them. And we gutted the firmware and built an animation. It's for an animation studio. It's showing animation work. And so instead of hitting the red button and it does the clock wipe transition, we turned the transitions between images themselves into an animation platform.
So does it like
I
just
wrote a.
rapidly flap like a flip book or something or
They can do that. Well, no, it's not that you're trying to do a flip book to show all the images. It's that you can do this. beautiful cascade as you. It's just transitioning from one image to the next, but it slowly ripples from left to right. Or another one does a sort of zigzag back and forth, and when it gets to the center, it sort of bursts and shows the next image. Or like if there's an image of a girl peeking around from behind the door, we can do a radial wipe, but right from her face.
So wait. Tell me again, how does this differ from just a screen though? It's mechanical and it actually rotates,
It's
yeah?
mechanical. So each of 168 individual units are individually controlled. So I could tell the array of all 24 by 7 of them go to the next image, and they would all go chunk, and you would see them all each flap together and show you the next image. But I built a whole pipeline in After Effects where you could animate in a grayscale sort of canvas to specify exactly the timing of when each flap flips. You can imagine this
Oh,
cool
that's the
rippling.
transition.
Yeah, and that's
The
the
transition
transition
is
from one to the next.
mechanical. Oh, that's cool,
Yeah.
man. That's super cool.
And so it's animation on like three different levels. We're showing animation, we're animating the transitions between them, and it's in the lobby of an animation studio. Like it's just, and it
That's very
sounds so
perfect.
beautiful. It just like washes over you as you stand there.
I want to
And
see
then on
pictures
the
of this
hour,
thing
it does
because
a whole big. I cannot. It is super secret because this client is all. That's the biggest downside. I work on. I'm used to 2 weeks being a long timeline, and I'm on these projects for like 2 years, and I can't show anything until the very end.
yeah. No, I
But
hear that, man.
we'll get there.
That's the nature of architecture though. You know,
Yeah.
that's also the it's the Achilles heel, you know, to play in this world I was talking to Patrick about this earlier today. If you play in this world, you have to have longevity. You have to be able to hold on for like 2 years while
And
the
you have to
project.
stay nimble. You have
Yeah.
to work like super fast. You have to sprint a marathon.
Yeah, it's about longevity. It's about endurance, man. It's an endurance race.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
sometimes that can feel like a grind, but it's also super rewarding because you get to play in these arenas where, if you're working on the stage is pretty prescribed. It's like there are certain
Mhm.
technologies, there's certain forms that are applicable for the stage, and I don't see the stage really breaking out of that because of the nature of it. It's like it's big squares, trusses. It's like it's got to
There's
be
some
quick.
cool shit in that world, and they're pushing that envelope. But you're right; it's still contained in a certain like approach.
Not like architecture, man. Architecture is a wide open book. You can be creative with architecture in a way that you cannot be, in my opinion, creative with
Yeah.
stage. And I came from
Yeah.
that world. I get it. It's like it's the same way you grew out of the 2D square, right? You were like,
Mhm.
there's only so much you can do with a 2D square. And I can tell you're really excited about kinetics. It's funny
Oh
to
my
hear
god.
you talk, and it's like all of these projects, you're like, there's a lot of kinetics in your world right now, and it is an exciting thing, but you can't do that in a movie. You know
No.
what I mean? You
You
can't even
can
do that
show.
with VR.
You can fake having filmed such a thing existing. But like
Yeah.
it's different being there. Let me tell you about the one. Okay, so here's one I'm really excited about. I can't name any names. I have to be circumspect again. But for a very large hotel and entertainment complex that's going up in Southern California, doesn't exist right now. Oh, I can say the city. It's going to go up right in the like on the bay in San Diego.
Oh,
It's going to be a
nice.
hotel with a concert venue in it. They want the whole thing to be what we're calling transitional art deco. So it's got like it looks like the posters from the Boz Lerman Great Gatsby kind of vibe. And I have pitched them, and also this process was super cool. The architecture team came to us because oh my god, because of the Atari Hotel. Have I even told you about that one?
No.
That one, just look up Atari Hotel at some point and look at the. This was an entirely ground up creative process. We didn't even build the building. Like it was just fanciful, but it made huge waves.
What?
This is what happens
Where
when the
is this?
architect. It's in idea space. It's going to be in Vegas, I think, is where it might end up.
Okay, so
Um,
this does not exist. This is like a
does not exist. But what you're looking at right there, which I can see in the giant mirror behind you seeing
yeah,
your
yeah.
screen, those were architectural renderings. This architect that we have, this guy named Hogan Chung, built like designed a beautiful form of a building, sent it to me, and he said, "Go crazy in After Effects, make some shit."
Dude,
And so yeah, but then
this needs
we
to
turned
be
around
this
and that's their pitch package, and they're getting it funded and built. Like That
Are you
will
fucking
exist.
kidding me? Oh my God.
I
This is
mean, it's
so cool.
I mean, it's as sure as anything else in this world. I don't know, but like
Well, this belongs
it's
in the
moving
metaverse,
forward.
dude.
Yeah.
Talk about a fucking yeah, this is really cool. But that's another thing is that, there's all of this excitement about virtual space, and I really
Mhm.
see a lot of promise between taking virtual concepts and creating tie-ins with the real world. Because I'm all
Yeah.
about like making real physical digital experiences. And
Mhm.
there's only so far you can go in a headset. So this
Mhm.
hotel is
This is both.
it's
This is going to be it's going to be all of it.
yeah, man. This is straight out of Snow Crash, but it's very much,
Oh, that makes me
it,
really happy to hear that. So I'm taking that one further into real reality with this new project. The reason I brought up the Atari Hotel is that the pitch process was architects been doing some great stuff, but like the way that the interiors part of architecture works is, like anything else, you start with a mood board. You start with your Pinterest board of finishes and like these are built projects in other parts of the world, but this is like how we're gonna approach entries, and this is how we feel the lighting is going to be, and these are some like interesting stonework finishes, and like, do you like this vibe? And so the night before the pitch, we had done a bunch of design work, but like I wasn't really happy with like the story of the pitch of it. So I
yeah.
took a bunch of their just shit they pulled from the internet, and I did After Effects work on top of that. So I took this
Uh,
elevator cab that was all like bits of marble, and I just VFX magic into that photo. So there's the staircase that as you ascend it, all the little vertical railings have LED embedded in it. Like it just like effervesces with little sprinkles of light as you descend the staircase and things like
yep.
that. But the one that has me the most jazzed is behind, if you can imagine, behind the reception desk, on that back wall where, it's usually some big sculpture or something, kind of a shallow bas relief or some kind of a dumb sunflower sculpture or whatever.
Yep.
Um, Imagine if that is a single slab of marble, but it's been water jet cut into strips, maybe 10 strips. I mean, so on the left and right, there's the main slabs of marble, but towards the center, there are 10 strips, maybe, 8 inches wide each. Each of those strips is on a linear actuator. So each one can only move up and down, but as
Yep.
a system, this place is right on the bay. All of our motion is sort of ocean themed. As a system, you can express waves, sine waves, and all kinds of beautiful forms that propagate through the system of 10 of these,
Dude,
each
you're
moving up and down in
describing you're
concert.
describing a kinetic version of the thing I was just talking to you about. That's what we
Yeah,
built,
yeah.
but it's not out of
Oh,
marble. We
shit.
did our tech demo with just, material, like plastic coated MDF.
Uh huh, uh huh, uh huh,
But
uh
the
huh.
way that light expresses through this, the
Mm hmm.
each of those flaps is articulated. So the whole panel
Oh,
is a
damn.
waveform, and those
Yeah, you got to show
waveforms,
me that.
they stack together into a long, long facade piece. And just the
Oh, I
way that
love it.
light plays through these flaps, it is so trippy, man.
If
But
you look
taking it
up
to the next level,
backlit, well, I mean, the way you take it to the next level is you just have really rich clients. So, like,
well,
I've been
yeah,
really
or
lucky in that way.
you do this with Corian. There's a guy who's doing
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous Corian carvings, and I've been knocking on his door. I'm like, homie, we need
Show
to
up.
light those things, and
Yeah.
you need to let us come in and create lighting effects behind these Corian panels that you're carving because
Yeah.
it is art.
So if you look up backlit onyx, the next level after we get the mechatronics in there is that these things are actually going to be cut super thin
Oh
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
then
Yes,
laminated to glass or plastic, and then I put low res LED behind it, and it becomes a diffusion panel.
right.
But
And then you
like,
animate that, and then
and then
that
I animate
becomes
that over the course of an hour. It does a sunrise sunset cycle.
yep, yep, yep.
I'm also a huge believer in the sort of Penn and Teller approach to like bring out the big guns, spend all the money on all the technology, do a huge amount of work, and then use 10% of that capability. You know,
So am I, dude.
because
That's called subtlety, and that is the nature of good art.
yeah,
When you have
yeah.
mastery over an art form, then subtlety becomes and nuance become the art form. It's like you can tell people who are mature in their artistic career when it's not all flash and trash, when they're able to create beautiful
Mm-hmm.
art using subtlety. And that's I think that's the mark of a true a true artist, somebody
I
who's
hope I hope to get
mastered.
there, man. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, I
One.
think that it's a journey, and the further you go down that road, the more subtle and nuanced and intricate your art can become.
Oh
You know?
yeah. The artist who I named my I no, you didn't meet Matt Isley. I just showed you pictures. I've got a 2.5-year-old, and the artist, his middle name is named after a good friend of my dad's named Tom Etherton. If you ever look up his work, it's hard to look up because it's impossible to photograph. But he was contemporaries with all those other guys, and he would make these spaces that just were unreal. And that's all it was. It was just a space to be in. So the
Mhm.
reason I'm bringing that up is that the way they would achieve it, he made the space that feels like, if you imagine looking down at a pair of parentheses and extruding that up, so you're in between two curved walls, but it doesn't form a circle. It's kind of forms a kind of ellipsis kind of space. He built the space where those walls are luminous. It was out of a stretch fabric. It was the early '70s. They didn't have blue LED, so
Right.
my dad is the like art preparer, and he just spent thousands of hours like just like putting gels on like light bulbs and then just inching them like an inch closer, an inch further back, and like just doing whatever it took on the outside of the volume that you're in so that when you're inside, you just see this perfect field of blue. It
Yeah.
was floor to ceiling with like maybe a couple inches of black, above and below. The ceiling is black, the floor is black. You have to put in little booties to go in there so that you don't make scuff marks on the floor that suddenly show you where the floor is. And you
Right.
just go in and zen out in a space where you can't tell where the horizon is, you can't tell where the walls are. And Tom said that the moment he knew his art was successful was, all these luminaries were in there scratching their chins and like writing about it and saying, "Oh yes, this is achieving certain goals." A 4-year-old girl went in there, and after a couple minutes, she just really slowly squatted down and reached down to like find the floor with her hands. And I was like, "Yes, I've done it."
Yeah.
And yeah, the reason I bring that up is that now you can go to any like sign shop in Koreatown and get the most beautiful, perfect blue light.
But
But
back
like,
then, it was rare, and the
it
rarity,
was rare,
the scarcity and
and
the difficulty of making that piece made it
yeah.
made it unique.
And now the ease of it means that they just, they throw, taco truck signs at you. There's this beautiful screaming blue, but like it's not art. It's not thoughtful. It's not. So
Well,
it's not that it
art
has
is
to be
ephemeral.
difficult.
Art is ephemeral, and it exists within a time. And like Nam June Paik, right?
Mm-hmm.
His art was using cathode ray tubes and televisions, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
that was so groundbreaking then, and it's been mimicked many times. And he
Being
was
an
one of the.
original, though, it still has that power.
It does,
Yeah.
man, because it's it he was a master of the craft, and he was also one of the first technology based artists
Mm-hmm.
that I was really attracted to and aware of. Um, but yeah, that's a.
Oh, I got one about technology-based artists. I used to do a lot of work, and I hope to do more work with an artist named Cameron McNally. Actually, the piece that gave me the bug to leave most to like make it my mission to actually leave the motion graphics nest was working on a project with him. He's a trained architect and an artist. He's got a small practice called Electroland. Does really like lovely work. But he's also just one of those like awesome like art school assholes who will just tell you when something's shit
Yeah.
and like no apologies about it. As long as he's right. But like I was talking to him and I said the word tech artist. And he said fucking tech artist. They don't know how to wrap any of their wires. They don't know how to make a statement. All they want to do is pull you into their office, show you a contraption, point at it, and say, "Look, I made it jump."
Right.
And
That's
like,
funny.
nobody cares that you made a thing jump. Like, why did it jump? How does it jump? Like, how beautiful is the jump? What does the jump make you think about and feel?
What's
And
the
like,
story?
and I mean, that's like art school 101, but it was really the first time that anyone had essentially, psychically slapped me across the face and say, hold on, no one cares that you're clever. No one gives a shit how good at engineering you are. If you're an artist, you got to make art.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very true, man. I was talking to my friend Forrest Stearns. He's actually a graffiti artist, but he is like a true artist, and he works for the city, and he does like public art installations. And he was telling me that, art is really a conversation. It's a conversation between the artist and the viewer, and that art is really it is only what it makes the viewer emote, how it makes that viewer feel. That
Yeah.
is the art, and that's how art captures you, is through evoking an emotional response, and having an unspoken conversation with that art piece and an individual viewer. And
Yeah.
successful popular art is art that manages to capture the collective conscious of many people of society.
And that's your challenge and my challenge as people who are working for a living, in commerce. Like I missed, it didn't work out. I happened to miss the boat of being a professional fine artist. That's fine. Like still in my heart of hearts, that's what drives me. And like finding subversive ways to make commercial work meaningful to the one kid in a day who happens to stop in that lobby and spend some time looking at that split flap display and like feel the sensorial experience of being in the room with it. Like that's what I've got to live for now. Like
Yeah,
finding ways to make it be art, even when no one asked for it.
that's interesting. So
I
let,
mean, that's what you did with that staircase that you may or may not have been allowed to tell me about.
yeah,
Like,
no, it's definitely, that was a labor, but it was also it was a sculptural piece. The message is emotional. There is no contextual message there. It's all about the flow of light and contrast and shadow and color, and how it interplays with like the natural uh material of the wood that it's embedded in. I
mm-hmm,
love that project. I live for those kind of projects, man.
mm-hmm.
I like contextual displays, and media walls can be done very beautifully. But how you were describing cinema as being stuck in the square. I almost feel like my art comes through in much more abstract ways, and in it really comes through in embedding animated lighting into a building in order to evoke an emotional response. You know?
All that shit from video games, when you put like the last stone in the temple and like it starts to come alive and like
Yeah,
we can do that now.
I
Or
know.
sacred spaces that are, just humming with 1,000 years of ancient energy. Like we can just do that.
I know,
Like
man.
we can make places that feel like things, and it's goddamn energizing. It's
Yeah.
what I get up for now in the morning. It's rare, like with your staircase, it's rare to get that gig, but like keeping that in your heart at all times means even when you've got a Silicon Valley firm talking to you about their, kaleidoscope metaphor for a space, we need to get this much messaging in there so that our
Mhm.
AdWords can
Oh my god.
like you turn it around and you say, okay, yeah, we're going to hit all those marks, but like, let me make you something that feels good to
Yeah. So
be.
do
Yeah.
you have, at this point, does the DxD department have are you, how is it structured? Are there designers in the DxD department other than you that are ideating and creating interesting creative uses of technology to achieve like narrative goals, but doing it in a creative
Yeah.
way? Are you free to
Yeah. And
create
like,
art?
I'm not technically a designer. I just like never shut up. And so my design work gets in there, but yeah, we have, there's 15 of us now here in LA. Soon to be 16. We have a design director, and we have now I think a stable of three just like full time like architectural space designers who know Rhino and CAD and all those tools. We also have a UX strategist. We have a connected experiences director. We have several what we don't call producers, we call them design managers. And there's two creative technologists. There's me and there's my mini me kid named Sam Gotchman, who's super brilliant, but he's junior, but he's like really punching above his weight.
Yeah.
And we do all the design really cohesively. We all get in the room together at least when we can. Like we design it really collaboratively, and then we break into our individual roles. But like we'll take a brief, we'll workshop it, we'll do our charrettes, we'll throw ideas at each other and challenge each other. And our boss Rob, who's been promoted to a high like principal position now, so we don't get to see him as much. He'll come in and like do that art school asshole like you know tough critique. You guys, like, why doesn't it feel like anything? That sort of thing. I
Yeah.
invite you to step back from the design. Like, you shouldn't be designing it. You need to be designing your problem first. You need to be designing the problem to solve rather than working on like the edge corners, the edge conditions of that pavilion. Like we make it work. We don't have it as everyone we're structured in terms of the titles everyone has, but we are a very fluid creative process.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. That sounds like a very healthy environment. It sounds like a good environment to manage these kinds of projects.
Yeah, and I want
And
to keep
as
it
you
feeling small as long as I can.
as your thing grows, you're gonna have to bring on more like essentially, I can't remember what you called them, but like project managers and directors
Mhm.
to like
Mhm.
guide the flow of these projects. Because
Yeah, and then my job, I'll be less on the box on each job, and my job will at that point be more of like a spirit animal. Just making sure everyone remembers to care.
oh man,
But it's gonna be I'm building out this lab not just as a physical place to do prototyping, but I want it to be a cultural space. I want to bring in guest lecturers. Actually, I want to bring in you and the One Hat guys separately or together, however you want to do it, just to do a one of those vendor presentations, a lunch and learn, but also like sure come in, show your like quals deck and everything, and show some work, but like just the way that you talk about work, the
yeah,
way that you talk about the philosophy of what you do. I think that could be really energizing for everybody again.
dude, me and Nick
Like
talk really well together. Me and Nick Moser, we're actually
I've
doing this.
seen it. I
We're
mean, I
doing
haven't
this.
seen it. I haven't seen it on stage, but I've seen your vibe.
We present at most of the conferences. We do a digital placemaking presentation together, and he is the fabrication side of the art that we do. It's like it's the yin and yang. It's like you've got the
Mhm.
physical and you've got the digital, and those two
Mhm.
things need to mesh into a physical digital experience. And that's how
Mhm.
One Hat and digital ambience work together very well. But it's like Nick and my friendship, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that's all that it all ever boils down to. I have saved two projects from like really big disasters just because of maintaining those friendships with the clients, like or with the partners. I don't know, whatever. Now I'm just wearing my client relationship hat, as they call it. But like, I don't give a fuck about like building giant stuff for lots of money. I just want to do cool stuff with cool people. And it's a very hard way to be a professional in this world, to maintain your naivete and to
Yeah.
like stay vulnerable. But like, it's worth it. Like every
No, I
time I
believe
get
in that,
screwed,
man.
it pays off, you know, by having wonderful things happen 5 times more often.
Yeah, I believe in that. I really do. And I think that that's it might not be the most ruthlessly efficient way to grow a business, but it's the only way that I want to grow my business. Like I
Yeah,
want to be friends with my clients. I want to be friends with the people I'm working with, because that's when the most amazing work happens, and then you feel good about what you're doing. You know?
damn right.
Yeah,
All right. Well,
absolutely.
I'm looking at the clock and thinking about having to go home and feed a kid. And that
Well, let's
sounds
do
like a
it, man.
really high note to end on, but
No, no, no.
like,
This definitely is, and I really appreciate you taking an hour and 15 minutes to just jam with me and hang out because
God, like
it's good to know you
so much
better.
likewise. Like I'm really glad that you. I mean, when you said that you had a podcast and you wanted me to come talk on it, like I didn't think you were blowing smoke up my ass, but like I wasn't expecting such a thing, and like it's so nice just be able to talk about this work, everything you do, and everybody you talk, the world that you swim in, like, is so supportive. Like hearing your other podcasts, like I'm not dude who's been like adjacent to history. Like I was there, like I used to hang out with G Monk before he was G Monk. Like I've known all of these kids. Like I watched Bot and Dolly happen. Like I was at like I knew kids from Obscura, but I never worked there. I was at V Squared Labs, like right at their height of their like I've been so like tied to this industry for so long without like being in the meat of it. It's
Yeah.
so nice to just hear this community still existing and still supporting itself and like still just being full of passionate creative people.
Well, dude, it is a community because we, when we get to know each other, hear each other's stories like we're doing right now, that's what makes it a community. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
stoked that you were on. I will be in touch. I want to show you some of the things that we're doing, and let's just keep on jamming.
I love it. Rob, thanks again. This was super fun. To be continued. Let's keep the conversation going. I mean, we don't need to make people listen to it, but like, let's keep talking and having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, David, have a good night, man. I'll talk to you
Yeah,
later.
you too.